just about that. That's scary. Words that start and end with the same letter. Anyone know the first one?
Aroma.
Aroma. Oh, what did you say? I just grabbed it. That's right. What's the next one? What? Drought. Drought. This is a word that you guys say all the time.
I don't say that all the time.
What? Why not?
I don't say that. I never say that.
Oregano. I think this is
No, it's spelled different.
What? Where?
Yeah, Regan.
Oregano is spelled with an A, right?
I don't know.
He's trying. He's trying.
That's the reason why I don't teach English.
Clearly. He teaches a different language. Oh!
All right, we're going to talk about these things. Let's do a little bit of review, right? Because we talked about pointers, and we talked about dynamic stuff. And so let's just refresh our brains on what that'll mean. To create a pointer, it's always going to be kind of the same template, right? You're going to have a type, right? You're going to have a star, and then you're going to have an identifier. Does that make sense? This creates a pointer that can point to whatever the type thing is. Right? To make something dynamic, we have a new word, and that word is? Say it louder. New. We're going to get the answer, right? So we say type star identifier equals new, and then what do we say after that? New type, right? Whatever type, right? Int star p equals new int, right? Double star p equals new double. Char star p equals new. Okay. Right? And in essence, what this is doing is it's creating some pointer, right? That's pointing to some unnamed thing, right? So this would name of this one would be identifier. Right, this would be type star, right, and this would be type. Once again, there's no name for that dynamic thing we created. There's no name for it. The only way to get to it is via the pointer, and to follow the arrow, we use a what? A star, right? So the name of this variable really is, right, star identifier. Make sense? Everyone good with that concept? Right? Then the other thing that we did was we worked on arrays, right? Dynamic arrays that we create while the program is running, right? The syntax is actually exactly the same except for what?
Oh, there's the array brackets.
Right, the array, right? Because then with arrays, think square brackets, right? And so what we'll add is we had square brackets at the end, right, with some size, right? So a pointer can point to a single, right, dynamic variable, or they can point to a dynamic array, and you use the same pointer to point to either. Make sense? Right? The key thing is, once you create a dynamic array, you use it like a what? Like a normal array, right? And so from there on out, you would just say, right, identifier, square bracket, wherever. Make sense? Any questions there? Right? I lectured for like 50 minutes the other day, and could have done it in like 2 minutes. All right. Let's talk about what we're doing today. Right? First thing we're going to talk about is dynamic multi-dimensional arrays. Right? So normal arrays, they're one-dimensional. Right? We talked last week, I think that's last week, right, about multi-dimensional arrays where we're going to have 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, right? What have you. Most of the time, how many dimensions do we do? 2, right? 2 dimensions, 2 indices. And I said that a multi-dimensional array is really an array of arrays. Okay? So I want to think about that concept and figure out, okay, syntactically, right, how am I going to make this happen? Okay? If a multi-dimensional array is an array of arrays, the first thing I need is a what?
An array.
An array. Does that make sense? Are we good with that? So let's say I create this array of size 4. Right, now we know to get to an array, I need a pointer. Agreed? Mm-hmm. Right, so really outside here I have this, right, pointer, right? We're gonna call it MD for multidimensional. Everyone good with that? Right? And somehow we're gonna want this pointer to point back. Right? We just did that example, right? If I want this to hold doubles, right, we would have just say double star MD equals new double square bracket 4. Does that make sense? But if, right, if a two-dimensional array is an array of arrays, that means that each of these spots, right, are also going to point to a what?
An array.
An array, right? And so each of these spots are going to point to their own arrays. Well, if they're pointers, it means the base type of that array must be of a pointer type. Does that make sense? So let's do integers, because integers are easy, right? So let's say each of these array hold integers, okay? What points to an integer? What's the type? Int what?
Star to star.
All right, so that means the base type of this array is int star. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which means that the base type of this pointer that points to an int star is a?
Int star star. Int star.
Does that make sense?
No.
2-star pointer points to a 1-star array of pointers that point to regular integer array.
It always points to one less star.
Right, one less star, right? You always get less shiny as you do that.
Okay.
So the name of the first array is star star.
Right, let's talk about how we create this, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the array.
This one?
Yeah, so
It doesn't have a name.
well, its name is kind of like if we want to get there, we have to go through
Yes.
star star.
Just MG. Because once again, just like a regular array, once you create a dynamic array, you treat it like a regular array. So you do square bracket, square bracket. Okay. But let's figure out, right, syntactically, how the heck would I create that?
Right.
Right, you guys ready for that? Right, well, there's only one thing that has a name, agreed?
Yep.
So this is what we have to create first?
Yep.
Okay. Syntactically, what would be the syntax?
Int star star MD.
We're like, maybe like that? Which is correct. That's good. Okay, so int star star MD creates this.
But is it the bracket bracket or no?
No bracket bracket,
Okay.
right? Because to make something dynamic, we have to use the word what? New.
New.
To make something dynamic, you have to use the word new. Once we create it dynamically, then we'll do bracket bracket to put stuff.
So you would do like a new star MD.
Right? So that gets assigned, right? A new, right? What are we going to assign into it? We want to assign this array into it. Right? So its type is,
Int.
right? Int what? Right? The here said int star.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because to make a dynamic array, right, we take a pointer and point it to a new thing of one less star type. It has to be int star. Put this down. And then, right, to make an array, what do we put on it?
Brackets.
All right, square brackets. And how big did I want this array to be?
4.
4. Right? Doing that, that line of code creates this, and points this guy to that.
So that's
And it's the same syntax we were just doing, right? Imagine if I just took off these stars, right? It'd be int star MD equals new int square bracket 4, right? You're making a dynamic array. You need one more star on the left side than you do on the right.
because that's an int star bracket 4.
Yeah.
That's saying that that is an array that has arrays in it. Not
It's
yet.
saying it's an array of pointers, and pointers are allowed to point at other arrays.
Okay.
But I don't have arrays in it yet,
Just clarifying in my head. Thank you.
right? So all I've actually created is this guy and this guy, right? And right now these arrows point to garbage. When you create stuff by default, it points to garbage.
It could still be dynamic.
Right, and this technically is dynamic, even though I put, right, a literal value in it.
It's just
So that
unfinished.
could be, right, number of students. We're gonna see that in a minute. Okay, now, my goal, right, that was great, you guys did great. My goal now is how do I point these arrows to these things? Use a for loop, right? Because the only way to methodically get to every spot in an array is to use a for loop, right? So, please start using I in your for loops.
In time.
A lot of people are having problems because they're naming them other things. It's just always I. Right? It's I, which starts at what?
0.
0. Right? I less than what?
Size.
Size is
4.
4.
Increment
Right? I goes up by 1. Right? Now remember, in here, MD at I, right, is, right, well, if I starts at 0, MD at 0. And then it's MD at 1. And then MD at 2. And then MD at 3. Is everyone good with how it methodically goes through each time? Right? Use the name of the array like normal. Use an index, and that's your element, right? That's a box inside of your array. Now, MD at I, its type is what?
Int. Star.
Star, right? Everyone good? The base type of this array is int star. So every box is an int star. Okay? Can an int star point to an array of integers? Yes. And how do we get it to point to an array of integers?
By telling it to.
By telling you, hey, point to something, right? Equals what? New int, right? Because now the arrays that we're making are integers, right?
And
how big are each of those other arrays?
Int 3.
3.
And all you do is create an array that has empty arrays in it.
In a sense.
Okay.
Right. Although technically they're not in it, right? The pointers point to these ones that are. So.
Right, they're not in it, but there's no values, but now they're there.
Yes.
These
were garbage. Now they point to their own arrays. These arrays technically are not filled up with them.
Right.
But, right, if you think about it, how many integer spots do I have? 12, right? And you'll notice that I have an array of 4 and an array of what? 3, and 4 times 3 is? Total max. Right? We just drew this, right? Right, when I presented it, we drew it like this. Right? Are we good with that? I just switched it together, but technically this is what it looks like.
I was just making sure that the last 12 weren't actually created or pointed to be existing until you wrote that last.
Until I said new, they didn't exist.
Right.
Right. And so when we think about it, this array has an index of 0, 1, 2, and 3. Does that make sense? Right. This array also has an index of what? 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Does that make sense? The beauty is, once you create a dynamic array or a dynamic multi-dimensional array, you treat it like a regular array. Okay? So if I want to put 5 here, right, what would be the syntax?
Star MD bracket.
Now, when you worked with arrays before, did you ever use stars?
Oh, no.
No, right? So MD, right?
MD bracket.
I only have one variable, right? So it's got to start at MD.
Bracket 2, bracket 1 equals 5.
Right? Okay, go to the MD array. Go to the second location in the MD array, technically the third location, right? So go to index 2, right here, everyone agree? And then if I do one more square bracket, it's going to go to what it's pointing to at location 1. Okay? If let's see how smart you guys are. If I just see out in MD at 2, right, as opposed to MD at 2 bracket 1, what is it going to output?
Garbage.
Not garbage.
It's gonna do garbage 5 and then garbage.
Now put a memory address, right? It's going to output, right, where this array is located as opposed to one of the values
Because
in the array.
it's pointed to.
It's pointed to that array, right? So the some memory address 0 at something, right? So in two-dimensional arrays, you only output one dimension, you get a memory address. Because you've only gone, right, what? One level down as opposed to 2 levels.
Got it.
How do you feel about this? Good? Okay? Okay. Now that it's been created and we use it like a regular two-dimensional array, to get every value, what do I need? And how many of them?
2.
2, and are they inside each other?
Yes.
Yes.
Nested.
They are nested.
Right, nested inside of each other, right? So let's write the code to do that. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Shall we?
Right. I'm just gonna flip through the slides because I think I said everything. But we finished it.
If not, we'll learn it later.
No, I'm gonna read the slides later. Alright, yeah, we did that. Yay, we did that. Yay. Alright, yeah. Nothing exciting. Or everything exciting. Alright, let's look at this. So in main, I can do something like int star quizzes. Right. So I'm going to create a 2-dimensional array that's going to hold quiz scores. Right? I haven't created the dynamic stuff yet, right? All I've done is created a pointer. Right? An int star pointer can point to either an int star variable or an int star array. Make sense?
Right.
All right, let's create some other variables. We'll do int size row, how many rows I have, and we'll do size column, how many columns I have, and you'll see that we're going to do some in a little while. So going off of what we wrote on the board, right, I can go quizzes, right, equals a new int star array, but I don't know, right, yet how many rows that I want, right, agreed?
Right.
Until I what? Get them from the user. Right. How many students? CN, right, size row. I can see out, right, how many, whoa, we got lots of notes going on. Right? How many quizzes, right, for my columns, and then we can see in my size of my column. Questions so far? Okay. I've only created a 1-dimensional array, right? And it's an array of pointers. So I need to loop through each element of that array and point it to another array. Right? So I need a what kind of loop again?
For loop.
If I equals 0, I less than how many rows I have.
Size row.
I goes up by 1. Right? And then we take quizzes at I. Right? And we assign it a new integer array of how many columns I want. Size column. Right? And this code right here, these 4 lines of code, creates me a 2-dimensional dynamic array. Right? Point our pointer to an array of pointers, point each of those pointers to an array where we're actually going to store them. Questions there? At this point, right, I have a what? A 2-dimensional array. So if I want to get to every value, I'm going to what?
For loop.
For loop, right? 2 for loop. So let's bring in this for loop and talk about it.
Oh. Like,
Right?
so
You're
just
not the only one.
yeah,
Copy
copy paste.
I copy paste too.
Thought we weren't allowed to do that.
Right? Let's look at this for loop. I row starts at 0. I row less than how many rows that I have, right? I row plus plus. This for loop is going row to row to row to row in my 2D array. Are we good with that? All right, that's what that for loop is doing. Now you notice in that for loop, the next thing I do is I have another for loop, right? Because each iteration of the outside loop, I'm on a new row. Agreed? Each iteration, I'm on a new row.
Yep.
So when I'm on a row, I want to get to every column of that row, right? And if I want to get to every column, I need another for loop. Right? So now my I call starts at 0. I call is less than how many columns I have, right? And the big thing in here is what? My array at location I row at location I column, right, is one of the spots in my 2-dimensional array. I will start at the top, first row. I'll go to first column, second column, third column. Right? When I'm done with all the columns, I will move to the next row, and I'll do first column, second column, third column, move to the next row. Does that make sense? right? Some people are still trying to put like size call here and size row and that kind of stuff. But does size call and size row, does that change the values? No, right? And in fact, those values are too big for the array, right? If my array is of size 5, the last spot is at location 4. I don't ever want to go to location 5, right? Think about it. When you write a for loop, the thing that is changing is I, right? Whether it's I or I row or I column, that's what's changing. Well, if I want to get to every spot in an array, I need to use I because it's the thing changing inside my script. Make sense? Right, so that gets all my values, and then, right, we can add some spacing. And then basically I wrote the same for loops again, right? Here's this for loop, and here's this for loop. Right, you'll notice that, right, if the first for loop is rows, right, notice for each row I set the sum to 0.
Yeah.
Right, for every row I set the sum to 0, and when I output their quiz score, quiz is at I row, at I column, I also add to the sum the current quiz score, which allows me to add up all of a student's quiz scores, so they're all on the same row, right, add up all the columns together, so I get a final sum. Right, and so you notice that in the student footer, before I move on to the next row, which is another student, right, I see out the sum. So let's see this in action. Let's do 4 students. Let's do 3 quizzes. Right, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. First student did not do so good. So here's student 1, quiz score 1, 2, and 3. That's in that inner column loop. And then when it's all done looping, right, I have my total, right? 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. And 4 plus 5 plus 6 is 15. Make sense a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Right? To work with dynamic multidimensional arrays, you work with basically regular, right, multidimensional arrays. So we're going to loop through with 2 for loops inside of each other, right, and deal with every spot in here. Make sense? Right, that's really what your lab's on today, is doing something kind of like this, but class-based, which isn't too much fun. Questions there? So now we know how to create what? Dynamic variables, dynamic arrays, dynamic multidimensional arrays. And so the last thing that we're going to talk about, dynamic thing, is dynamic objects. Right. Let's talk about dynamic objects. What's an object?
An instance of a class.
An instance of a class, right? And really it's basically just a variable, right? Except that it got created from a class as opposed to, right, our plain old data types like int, double, and line. Does that make sense? Everybody good with that? So the syntax to create a dynamic object is the exact same syntax to create a dynamic variable, because really a dynamic variable and a dynamic object are the same thing, right? Type star identifier equals new type. Type can be int, double, char, right? But it can be string, which technically are classes, right? String could be any other, right? Auto, car, right? All the other stuff that we do, right? Double list, whatever. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's actually the same syntax, right? So let's look at this structure. All right, this beautiful structure called record. It has a number and a grid, right? Everyone good? This is a blueprint for an object, right? Record is now a new type. Good?
Yep.
So to create something dynamic, I would just say record star my record equals new record. Just like I say what? Int star my int equals new int. Everyone kind of okay with the pattern? Well, the pattern's not going to change. It's the same pattern, right? We're just placing different types in. But the types always have to match. Record star my record equals new record. Let's talk about what that's making, right? So record star my record creates me a variable called my record, right? Whose type is what? You know when I pause, you're supposed to say what?
Record star.
Record star, right? Right? Because I said record star my record, right? The type of my record is a record star. Okay? But it's going to point to a what? A new dynamic record that does not have a name. Ever know that?
Yeah.
Doesn't have a name. So we're going to create this object, right, whose type is record. And I made it a little bit bigger because that object is made up of a what? A number and a
grade.
Right, so inside of it has number as a member, and it has what?
Grade.
Grade as a member. Right, and when I assign that, right, really the pointer points there. Don't worry about where the pointer's pointing to. It's not like it's pointing to number or grade. It's just pointing to dot. Good with that? Right? Whether it's a structure, whether a record is a class, the same syntax, right? It's going to be the same syntax either way. Make sense? Questions there? Now, usually when I have an object, if I want to get to a member, what operator do I use?
Wait, say that again?
The dot, right? To access a member of an object, I use the dot operator, right? So, right, usually I would do like my record, right, dot number equals 5. Everyone goes back? The problem is that my record is a what?
It's
A pointer, right? So does my record have a dot? No, right? The object is the only thing I can use dots on. How do I get from my record and how do I follow the arrow?
Would you put dot?
No, we use the star, right? We use the star, right? The
Right.
star allows me to get, right? Because really, technically, the name of this object is what?
So it'd be star number
Star my record.
or number star?
No, the star goes on your variable.
Oh, okay.
So star my record dot number, right? Which that's already looking kind of ugly. Agreed? And then the other problem is that the dot operator has a higher precedence than the dereferencing operator. So this is still saying my record dot number and then try to dereference that. Which means what else do I need?
Oh.
Is that ugly?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Is this what you, when I said like pointers make students cry, this is probably maybe what you're imagining, right? Yeah, it is a better way. Because that's terrible, right? And programmers realize this. And so what we do is, okay, there's two things that are happening here. We're dereferencing and we're accessing. Does that make sense? We're dereferencing, which allows me to move down the arrow, but then the dot operator allows me to access numbers, okay? What we get is a new operator called the arrow operator. And the arrow operator allows me to dereference and access at the same time. And so that is equivalent to saying my record arrow, which is a dash and a greater than symbol, number. This says access the thing my record is pointing to, right? Access the number of what the pointer is pointing to. Does that make sense? Right? So you could write it like that, but please don't ever write it like that. Right? This is the exact same thing as that. Right? And I think
Please don't
a lot
ever.
nicer.
I'm gonna show you, but don't ever.
Right, exactly. Okay, why would I show you? Because if you say my record dot number, right, it's not going to compile, and you're going to get some error message about like my record of type record star has no number named dot. So it's good to know what's really happening behind the scenes. Right, which it won't. Why is that what we're trying to do? It would know, before it even tried to do assignment, it would be trying to access, right, the member of this pointer, which it was saying.
I don't like that it isn't just like star number.
Well, the star's already being used so many places.
No, I get it. It's just.
And quite honestly, as a C++ programmer, you should use arrow way more than what we use now. That means we're still doing this. Any questions there? Because now I'm going to give you the confusing part. That sound good? All right, let's think about this. Right? Dynamic arrays, can have a base type that is a structure or a class. Does that make sense? I can make an array of integers, but I can also make an array of records. Does that make sense? Are you good with that? Right, that array can be dynamic or it cannot, but I can do that, right? Basically, I can have objects as the elements of an array. Right? We've always just done like integers or doubles, but theoretically, right, each element of an array could be an object. Good with that idea?
So how do you make them individualized instead
we're gonna get there.
like
We'll get there.
sequential?
Today, we're gonna do that right? You can also have a structure or a class, right, who has a member that could be a dynamic array. Right? So you can have an array of objects, and you can have an object that has an array inside of it. Which that shouldn't be too crazy because, right, assignment 4, that's what you did, right? You created a double list, which was a class that had an array inside of it. Right? What we're adding to it is that that array can be dynamic. Right? That's what we're adding. Right? So the techniques look similar, but because we're combining two things, we have to do them in the correct order, and we have to access them in the correct order. What I mean by that is to get to things in arrays, what symbols do we use? To get to places in arrays, what do we use? Brackets, right? Square brackets. To get to members of an object, what symbol do we use? The dot operator, right? So we have to make sure that we do the square brackets and the dot operator in the right order, depending on if I have an array of objects or if I have an object with an array in it. No, this isn't, no arrows. No more arrows. All right, so let's look at this. Well, I'm not going to do size 10 because that's ridiculously large. All right, but let's figure out what's happening here. All right, I create a pointer, right? Whose name is grade, right? Its type is what?
Record star.
Record star, right? Now it points to, right, the equals, right? It points to a new record array of size 10, right? But I'm not going to do 10. Okay? We always got it. I'll do mine of size 3. Okay, but, right, it's a new array of size 10 of records. Okay? Now records are made up of a what?
Oh,
You remember? A number and a grade. Right? You're just going to go num for ease. So my array is made up of 3 objects, but each object is made up of a number and a grade. Does that make sense? So the question is, right, if I wanted to put the value 10 right there, what is the syntax to put the number 10 there? Say it louder.
Record brackets 3.
But not record, but
Rings.
right, bracket 0, 1, 2. Oh yeah, that's stupid count by 0. It sucks, right? Right? Grade bracket 2 gets me to this object. Agreed?
Yeah.
And then what? Dot num, right? Which gets me to this box here, and then I assign it what value. Okay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Once again, it's an array of objects, right? Are we good with that? It's an array of objects. So you notice that the first syntax I use is array syntax,
Mm-hmm.
and the next syntax I use is what? Object syntax, because it's an array of objects, right? This here, right, is a what? That is a record.
Yep.
Right? Grades bracket 2 is a record, right? That element of the array is a record. Well, how do we access things and objects? The operator, right? So this record dot its member gets assigned something.
The dot and slash
The dot and the arrow. Yeah, the dash greater than. They do the same thing, but you would use the arrow if instead of this being this was actually a pointer to an object that had a right, and that would be a dynamic array of dynamic objects, which is the assignment in the second semester that makes my students cry. Next semester. But you're not taking it from me, so you won't have to cry next semester. But that's the assignment that expected us to try. But I
I'll
think
be
they
in
make a
crippling depression by
dynamic
then.
array of dynamic objects and then do a bunch of stuff. Doesn't look that hard, right? Yeah.
Not too
But
bad.
when you have to take it a semester from now,
You're all you're done.
we learn it and then it's a project in another semester.
That's what I'm saying. You gotta apply it at some point.
Yeah.
Can you make the dynamic array so that it holds multiple types, like type A and type star?
You cannot. You cannot. An array can only have one base type.
How do they do like?
So the only way to do that is to make like a structure, right? Because technically this structure holds an integer and a character in each spot. So a lot of times this array of structures idea, it happens a lot when you're trying to store data. Like you're trying to make a simple like database inside of your program. Array of structure. We good there? Right, so this is an array of objects, right? I created the array, right? The array itself, each element was an object. Right, so we do it in the right order, right? Grades, bracket 0, dot grade. Right, see out grades, bracket 5, dot. We did all that, great. Right? Let's do it the other way. Let's create a structure with a dynamic array. Right, so let's look at this structure. Right? Does that structure currently have a dynamic array in it?
No.
No, but what does it have?
It has a pointer.
It has a pointer, and a pointer can point to a what?
Dynamic.
A dynamic array, right? So my structure does not have a dynamic array in it, but right, it can eventually. Okay. And if you're going to do this class-based, which is what you're going to do in your lab today, right? Your constructor would create your dynamic array, right? That way, every time you create an object, it would have the dynamic array. Do I have that? Right? Can I say record grades? Is that allowed? Say yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Is that dynamic?
No.
No, right? You don't see a star, you don't see the keyword new, not dynamic. Right? This just creates me a grades object. Right? That grades object has a number. Right? And it has a grade. Right, and we're good with that? And its type is record. I get that.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Nothing dynamic yet, right? How, though, would I take this grade and point it to a dynamic array?
Oh, you do the new. Well, care.
Everyone's just guessing.
I think you're all.
Well, you need to start with the
I
care.
hear too many things. I'm like, which one? Okay, arrow. If it was dynamic, is it dynamic? Is my object dynamic?
No.
No. So ignore the arrow. This arrow, right? How do I get to a box inside of an object? What do I use?
Dot operator?
The dot operator, right? Dot operator on the name of my object.
Yes.
Grades.
I know. It's a mouthful.
Star
Grades, plural, dot what?
Star.
Dot grade, right? This is why you should name your variables better. Right? So grades.grade is this spot, right? Which is a char star. Right? Because it's a char star. Right? So it gets assigned a what?
New.
Some size. I guess that one was two. So we get 2. Does that make sense? Right? And so now my object internally has a pointer that points to a dynamic array. Now, I know we're inside of an object, but once you create an array, you use it like for dynamic array, you use it like a regular array. Right? So if I want to put the value 10 here, right, what is the syntax for that? Grades.grade, right? Which is an array.
Right.
Right? So you can't say equal to yet, it's an array, so what do I use?
Dot. Wait. Arrow. Arrow.
What do I use with arrays?
Brackets.
Square brackets.
There we go.
It'd be a for loop if I wanted to go to all the places, but I don't want to go to all the places. So what do I use? Square bracket. Grades.grade, right? This here, right, is an array. What do I use with arrays?
Brackets.
Right, so grades.grade, square bracket, what location do I want to go to?
2.
Right, what do I want to put there?
10.
Does that make sense?
Overthinking it.
This time, right, it's an object with an array inside of it. So the first notation I use is object notation, dot operator. Second notation I use is what?
Array.
Array notation, right, square brackets. Because it's an object with an array inside of it as opposed to an array with objects. They always use the symbols in the same order of right, what's inside of it. How are arrays working? Kind of like jelly, a little bit.
If anything, I'm overthinking.
Right. Right. So I did that, and then to access, right? Grades.grade bracket 0 equals A. And I put 10 in there, but it's characters. So I just Does that make sense a little bit? Let's do a little bit with it. Not a lot, let's do a little bit with it. Did I tell you I was going to run my computer out of memory today?
Run out of memory.
I'm gonna try.
You're gonna use
Windows is too smart. It's not gonna let me fully run out of memory.
Gigabytes of memory.
Kind of lunchtime anyway, so what's fine. No bad joke.
Because it's gonna eat.
Got it. Hilarious.
That's why you guys keep coming back, right?
I come here for the,
Oh,
the
yes, the
jokes.
second-rate humor, definitely.
The best part is it's not even second-rate humor. I've already tried it on my class yesterday, so you're the second class that I'm doing the same joke.
Oh, so we're sloppy seconds?
I don't do as many jokes, so I'm like, this was terrible the first few times.
It's okay, you have Jerry in it. You don't need to do jokes.
All right, so here I have a class called scores. All right, everyone good with classes?
Yeah.
All right. Public section, I have a constructor. It's a constructor because it's named after the class. Agreed?
Yeah.
Notice my constructor takes in a size. Right? And then I have a fill-up function and I have an output function. Everyone good with that?
Yeah.
Notice my two attributes, right, are size underscore and int star scores underscore. Well, int star is a pointer. A pointer can point to a what?
An array.
To an array, right? And size should probably hold what?
An array.
Or size of the array? Right? And so this scores class, right, will allow me to create a dynamic array of whatever size is passed in the constructor, right? And then build up and output. So the class now, which is nicer than, right, regular arrays. Regular arrays, you know how big they are, kind of, but, right, you don't really know an easy way to access them. Right here, the class will always know how big it is. Right? So it's keeping that size. You also look at, let's write the constructor, and then I'll paste them the other ones. We'll get you in there. All right, let's take our three functions. Just because it's always good to practice, right? Paste them down below. Class name, colon before the function name. Please, 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 bring them back, right? Some people are starting to write them right here. Bring them back a little bit. It's supposed to be up against the edge anyway. When you get that lovely, why you lose points for indentation problems, right? That's probably what I'm talking about. So my constructor needs to do two things. It needs to store my size, and it needs to create a dynamic array of size. Does that make sense? Well, storing size, we should know how to do that, right? Just give the underscore variable the parameter. Right? I'm making an assumption that size is correct. It's not 0, it's not negative. Remember that? Okay. If I told you that the pointer's name was scores underscore, right, how would I point that to a new dynamic array? I told you its type was int.
Bracket size.
Right, and here I can use size or size underscore, right? Doesn't really matter. Right? Because I stored it. Yeah. If these were opposite, then it would matter. But it's not, so I stored it now. Right? This says on object creation, right? On object creation, right? I will store the size given on the object creation in size underscore, and I will point the scores underscore pointer to a new array of that size. After you do that, guess what? Scores underscore is just a what? Just an array, right? And so if I want to fill it up, I need a what?
For loop.
For loop. And I want to output it, I need a for loop. And I want you to say for loop again, you would say
Oh,
Hey.
you write it pretty
How
fast.
fast I can write for you?
Like instant.
Hey, guess what? I is 0, I less than size, right? Into the score, right? Bring it at scores at I, right? Scores bracket I, right? I'm saying at I, literally it's bracket. Right? I'll put the same thing. There's my score. Easy enough? Questions there? So in main, I could create an object, right, of scores type, right? I could say scores object, right? But I would have to give it, right, how big I wanted it to be. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But because we're working with dynamic objects, right, I'm going to do it like this. Scores star object, right, equals what? New scores. And now, right, I need to call the constructor, right, because the constructor needs a number passed into it. And so I'll do parentheses, and I'll add in, right, some value. It's kind of cool because now it actually looks like you're calling a function, right? I'm making a new scores bracket 5. Well, guess what? Here are scores, parentheses that takes in an integer, right?
So if you wanted
So you're
to,
calling the constructor, right, and passing in the value of.
if you wanted the 5 to be a value that the user wants to use, you would just cin size underscore.
Yeah, well, you would like
Or size.
int size, right? Cin size. And pass it. You just create it. It doesn't have to be name size. You can name whatever.
Right.
We have that. If I want to call the fill-up function, I would say object, and then how do I access a dynamic object stuff? What do I use?
Arrow.
All right, so I say arrow, fill up, and then I would say object, all right, arrow what? You want me to do a dot? You want to see what the error message looks like? No one said yes, but I'm doing it anyway.
Oh, okay.
Jump off the cliff.
Ah!
Request
That's-
for member output in object.
Yeah, request for member output to an object, which is a pointer type score star.
Maybe you meant
And
to
then you
use
meant to
the
use the arrow. That's kind of nice, right? I mean, yeah, obviously, what do you want?
Use the arrow.
Right? You get the ugly if you don't put the parentheses too. I don't know what gives you here. This error request for member output an object, which is okay, it's the same thing.
kind of break it.
So if it does this, right? President says it'll always do that one first, so it never got to do. But you want to leave it up? Let's leave it ugly, just to show you that it does work.
It does look super gross next
Right?
to the
Yeah, it's
arrow.
terrible. So now I can type in 4, right? And here's my score. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now my program will always dynamically create an object that inside of it will dynamically create an array of whatever size we use it. Did I say dynamic to make sense? Right? I created a dynamic object, but that dynamic object constructor created a what? Dynamic array. Because if you look, right, every time you see new, right, you say what? Dynamic, right? And so here is new, and so I say what? Dynamic, right? So this object is dynamic, but when that object is created, you call a constructor, agreed?
Mhm.
So in the constructor, what do I call? New. So I create something dynamic inside of my dynamic. Cool? Questions there?
And the dynamic sponsorship was fulfilled.
Okay.
Contract.
I get paid 10 cents every time I say that. Try to sneak it. All right. I'm very briefly going to talk about pointers and functions. I think we'll understand what's going on here, right? A pointer is has a type, right? Int star is a type, double star is a type, right? When I say type, I mean type, which means that you can use that type anywhere that we've used type before, okay? Such as the return type of a function, such as the type of a parameter. Does that make sense? Right? And so we can actually use pointer types or pointers as parameters. We can return them from functions because they are indeed types, and we can use them anywhere that we see them. So here's my lovely function called find the other pointer, right? Notice it takes in a pointer. Is that legal?
Yep.
Yes. And it returns a what? A pointer. Is that legal?
Yep.
Yeah. Right? Because it's a type. Right? Those are pointers. Right? It starts with pointer type. Okay. Let's talk about this. Was this called by value or called by reference? Called by value, right? Do you see an ampersand? No, so it has to be called by value, right? Ampersand means called by reference. Okay? Now the crazy thing is though, a pointer holds a reference to something, right? So it's still called by value, but it acts like called by value. Okay, so we have to be careful. All right, so let's talk about this. Okay. I've lost half my slide. I don't know what it was.
It's more than half.
So in main, you created that variable that's.
Lost a lot of
You
memory.
guys are way ahead, right? So we didn't even do this, right? No, okay. So main has its own scope. Agreed? S has its own scope. Agreed? Okay, so let's look at what happens in main. In main, right, I create a variable called myVar. Right, give it a value of 5. Good?
Yep.
I also create a variable called P, right? That is a pointer that gets the memory address of myVar. So in essence, P points to what?
MyVar.
MyVar. Any questions on that?
The memory.
Right? Ampersand memory address of the variable. Right? It could have been dynamic too. I didn't have to give it a name. I just happened to give it. Okay. Good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Now I call the F function. I pass in P. And once again, it's called by value. Okay. Call by value means the value of the argument gets copied and gets placed into the perimeter. Right? Call by value says the value of the argument gets placed into the perimeter.
So that would be, that's the value that's the memory spot of MyVar.
Because right now I have my parameter is point. It gets the value of the argument. The argument was P, right? The value of P is the what? The pointer. It's an arrow, right? Which means that point is going to point to the same thing that what?
P.
P is pointing to. So point also points to here. Agreed? Once again, though, it's called by value, right? When we say to call by value, like whatever you do in the function doesn't affect the other stuff, right? Which is true if you change this variable, right? But you notice that in the function I say star point equals 10, right? Star point says don't go to this variable, go to what it's pointing to. Well, point is pointing to what? MyVar. And so MyVar is no longer 5, it's now what? 10. Right? Function is what happens to F?
Resets.
And in main, did MyVar get changed?
Yeah.
Yes, even though it was called by value, it still got changed because I passed in an address, right? And once you pass addresses around, right, all bets are off. Because the address will take you wherever you want to go.
Yellow brick road.
Right, exactly. Questions there? Good with that? Look at that be quick. All right, there's some code that does that. Whatever. All right, let's talk about memory management. So these couple slides are going to set up what we're going to talk about on Thursday. So these dynamic things I create, right, I call new. Right, these dynamic things come from a place, and that place is called the heap. Okay, so all dynamic stuff comes from this place called the heap. So the heap, because it's just a heap of memory, right? Imagine you have this bag of a bunch of memory. Every time I call new, I reach in the bag, pull out some memory. Right, that's that dynamic variable. Reach in the bag, pull out another spot. Right, that's the next dynamic variable. Never from the stack, which we haven't talked about. Yes.
Like from Magic?
No, not from Magic. I told you my Magic story that I was into Magic cards way long ago, but I got into them right after like
Planeswalkers
started, but I don't have any like the original cards. I have all the worthless
No,
cards.
like Black
Those were only
Lotus
like
or
6 months after all the original cards. My brother had a bunch of them and he can't find them, but
useless.
probably a couple grand of stuff that was
yeah.
just sitting in a box.
Easy.
Just can't find it. Anyway, side note. You don't want to know. It's not.
Well, when you're battling, stuff goes on the stack. There's like a order.
Yeah, right, there's a stack. And the stack actually works the same as the stack.
That's why I
stack up.
Yeah.
Every time you call new, memory comes from the heap. Every time you call new, memory comes from the heap. Every time functions get called, they come from the stack. All right, it's all variable. All the variables we created so far all get created on the stack. Dynamic stuff gets created on the heap. All right. Theoretically, you can actually eat up all the memory in the heap, and then every time you call new, it fails. All right, which will either crash your program or return a value called null. Null is just a value like that says, right, the pointer is pointing to nowhere, right? Null is like abyss. Right? So instead of your pointers like starting out with garbage, you can start them out with null. Right? Kind of like 0 for integers. That's what it says. You can test for it, right? You can create it. You can say if b equals null, right? This is a holdover though. This probably won't work for you. Newer compilers, they just crash your program. Right? So they don't return null. They just
That's like they're handling that state by crashing it.
Yeah, and you can catch that state and try to do something with it. But the default is that. Okay, this dynamic stuff does not follow scope rules. Okay, scope rules say when you create it in a function, when the function ends, the memory goes back, right? Variable ends, memory goes back. Agreed? Dynamic stuff does not follow that rule. If you create something with the keyword new, when a function ends, guess what?
It stays.
Still hanging out in memory. Okay? Now, let's think about this though. Pointers, are pointers dynamic?
Yeah.
No, they point to dynamic things. You can't pause, right? When I pause, right? I did it, right? Pointers are not dynamic, they're just variables, right? They point to dynamic things that are, right, dynamic. Which means that a pointer can point to something dynamic, but when a function ends, pointer goes away. Dynamic things stay, right? You don't want that dynamic thing to stay. So before you lose your pointer, you have to recycle your memory. And say, I'm no longer using this. Basically put it back into the heap. Every time you call new, you get stuff out of the heap. We're going to learn on Thursday when I call delete, to put stuff back in.
Where are you sticking it somewhere?
Well, so that's where the metaphor kind of stops, because the way memory works is that there's just memory locations. So you're actually just reserving a spot in the heap. You're not actually taking anything out of the heap. The heap's there, and you're just saying, this spot in the heap is my spot. When I say delete, you say, no longer my spot, someone else can take it and do whatever.
You're like highlighting.
It's like that, if you go to the gym, right, there's a bunch of lockers or whatever, right? And so you're reserving lockers, right? But then when you're done with your locker, right, you open it up and have the next person.
Like when you go to Sunsplash.
But if you leave stuff there, guess what? It's still hanging on the locker.
How does it know so you know the memory location is stuff?
Yes.
How does it know what's garbage and what's not garbage? How does it know go in there and don't grab this memory space because that has something useful in it?
The operating system. The operating system is the thing that gives you memory, and it knows which memory locations are being used for stuff, and which memory locations are not. Yeah. The operating system is very powerful. All right, let's see. Yeah, we said that. Yay. Did I talk about orphaning memory?
Orphaning memory.
Orphaning memory, because the memory gets left with no way to get back. Pretty sad. All right, so we like to recycle our memory, and we'll talk about recycling our memory using the word delete on Thursday. Sound good? All right, let me try to have my program eat a bunch of memory, and then
from Death Note.
we'll talk about today's class. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. You can do this on Cloud 9, but it's normally not good to make Cloud 9 run out of memory. So that's why I'm going to do it locally. Over an existing project. StarCraft 2? Yeah. Guess what the last time I played StarCraft 2 was?
Last night.
No, probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't know.
4 or 5 years ago.
I was close.
Yeah, right? I don't have time to play games.
Make time.
I can have your grades be even further behind than they are.
There's always
That
time.
works, man.
It's always time.
It's not even you, it's.
4.3 gigabytes of memory.
Fall
in
behind on your
idle.
assignment.
You're using 4.3 gigabytes of memory in idle.
Let's talk about this. I'm running a loop while true. How long will that loop run?
Forever.
For forever, right? So if I say new int, right, that is going to, every time this loops, will carve out just a tiny little piece of memory. Right? 4 bytes, I think, is what integers are taking up right now.
Yeah.
Every time it loops, it's going to take up 4 bytes. Right? So
It's gonna loop.
slowly going to eat memory because it's going to loop really, really fast. Right?
I have more memory. I can probably make it last
It's just going
longer.
to make it crash fast. I mean, but I
It's
want
gonna
to
use-
see the little chart, right? Everyone see that? Without doing anything, my computer's eating up over half of the memory that it has.
Oh my god.
All right, you ready to run the
Something
program?
wrong with your
Well,
computer.
you have several tasks open there.
Using less than a gigahertz. He's using 888 megahertz.
14 minutes.
Holy shit.
You're gonna crash it anyway.
Using 800
Hold it off the
megahertz.
updates and make sure they use it. All right, so I run it. All right, everyone gets to watch the little.
4.5, 4.7. Oh no. Oh,
That is relatively fast.
that's pretty fast.
It looks like we're dealing with logarithms.
That's
It's
6.1.
exponentially
All right,
going
so
up.
leveled off. Everyone see how it's leveled off?
Yeah. Oh, it's going up.
It probably won't. Windows has gotten better where it won't let me eat all that. Liar. Okay, well, you'll notice, everyone see how it dropped all the way back down?
Must construct more pylons.
Oh, your
Oh, not yet,
processors.
but you'll notice that on my screen it says memory has stopped working. So eventually
Oh, on my screen.
it hit that, right, it hit that it couldn't allocate any more memory, which crashed the program.
It's like, no, you're not gonna crash your Windows.
So when I hit cancel, right,
6.3 gigabytes of
and then you'll
memory.
notice that all of my
Oh,
memory.
went right back down.
Because, okay, when you eat up memory in your program, it only eats it until the program's over. So once my program crashes, it's over, all that memory goes back. Right? If I did like new double, right, I did like bracket 20, right? That way I'm creating 20 doubles every time I loop. It's gonna crash fast.
Oh no.
Peace. See how fast it crashes?
Oh yeah, 5.3,
I'm gonna pull up that.
6.1. Oh, that slowed down.
Right? So
Terminated.
This is
Terminated.
the crash, right? Terminate called after throwing an instance of what? Bad alloc for allocation. So allocation is a word we use for allocating memory, right? So it's saying that I tried to allocate memory and it was a bad allocation. So crash.
Please contact the application support team for more information.
Please stop being garbage. Just
Does
for
that
2
make sense?
seconds.
Or like my plateau? Like a little mason?
Because
Oh,
you're
no.
in Butte County.
You fell off a cliff.
A little Butte.
You can make art with that.
They charge you now to get it.
You can make art with the graph.
Anyways. Yeah.
Why are you idling so high? Oh my god.
When I run my computer, I'm at 5.6 gigabytes in idle.
How much?
Yeah, but you probably have.
I have nothing open.
No, but I'm saying you probably have more.
I have 16 gigabytes of memory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're like running here off the C of what you have. He's running here off of the C of what he has.
Yeah. You know, Google Chrome, look at all those tabs
There's
open.
no point in opening it up. I'm going to show you the PDF, but there's no point.
Google Chrome just eats the memory, that's why.
So the PDF says delete the class in these other files, right? So you need to get the other files on a Cloud 9 and we'll work on them. So let's talk about multi-H and multi-CPP.
You have to request from the server.
Multi-H, right, is your header file, which I've written. Okay, it has 3 functions, right? A constructor, a fill-up function, and an output function, which looks a heck of a lot like the dynamic array one we created, right? I had a constructor and a fill-up function and output function, right? Difference though is that, notice this one's called multi because not only do I have 1 dimension, I have rows and I have what? Columns. Okay, so you're not making a 1-dimensional array, you're making a Two-dimensional array, which is why the pointer to my array isn't int star array, but it's int star multi. Okay. So you need to meld kind of what we did in the second example with what we did in the first example. Create a dynamic multi-dimensional array, fill it up, 2 for loops, output it, 2 for. That makes sense? Right? So you need to copy those 3 functions and paste them into this basically method.
Okay.
And you got this from where?
On today's lab, below the PDF, we'll have multi-H, multi-CPP. Come on, it said that I had like a couple more minutes.
We open all.
That's on 118. That's 2 more minutes.
In 47 seconds.
They're live.
Yeah, you can download and driver, multi-H, multi-CPP, and driver. Download them and then just drag them into Cloud9. Right?
Where do we?
They should be in their own folder because you have 3 files, so you have to use the assignment thing to go. Okay.
Do you think IT
Send help.
is like shutting down your computer on purpose because of the high memory allocation?
No, these are just updates that I refuse to do.
Maybe if you ran that in Windows 95, it would crash.
And they're fine. The only worst thing I did with a new computer that they gave me is I just wiped it. Okay.
Because he knows how.
That's today's lab. Questions on today's lab?
Where do I find that again?
Just on normal today's, like, where you would normally find it.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's why
Because,
the freaking.
Because I found it.
I'm brain farting and looking
I
at
found
the
it.
It's
lecture.
not as bad as you think it is.
Found it.
It's only like 21.
1.7 kilobytes. That's too much.
But I also promised I would tell you about the code, your last code assignment.
Yes.
So I've now told you about your last code. All right. Last code assignment is a text adventure game. Your goal is to create a game, right? But because it's console based, it has to be text because there's no animations, there's no nothing.
I can do it. Got this.
You can use ASCII art. ASCII art's great. Yeah, right? What am I requiring from you? You in the game, you should have a game world. Worlds in quotes, okay? This assignment is very open-ended, okay? If you do something that fits into what I'm asking, then that's great. Which could be pretty much anything. Okay, this is what you need. A minimum of 4 rooms, areas, what have you to explore, right? So that'd be basically 4 distinct places in your game that you go to, right? Go to, once again, could be whatever you interpret that as. Okay? Make sense so far? Right? Each room should have a description, right? So you're in this room, so it should say something about, right? If we're running a game, it would say that you're in this dark, sneaky room with weird coding posters on the wall. Right? Everyone good with that? All right, it's text-based, so everything that the user is going to imagine comes from your description. Make sense? Okay. There need to be objects and characters for the players to interact with. Basically, if you have 4 rooms, there needs to be at least 4 things the user is interacting with. Okay, rooms have to have things to interact with. You have rooms that are not really, there's just a description of a place, but don't have anything. But to get credit, you need 4, right, objects, characters, right, whatever to interact with. Does that make sense? Right, some way to track, right, player progress. There's no point in playing a game if you don't know if you're winning or losing or what the point is. Right? This is not a math class. It's a well-held experience. Come on, you do math, but you don't know why you're doing this. In the game, you want to know what. A means for players to enter commands, menu, command prompt, right? Entering single word letters like north, south, east, west, whatever. Right? It can be as simple as a menu that says, press 1 to do this, press 2 to do that, right? Press 3 to do this. Make sense? Easy enough? Right? You're also required to create a map of your game world and submit it with your lab. My recommendation, and the reason I do this, is that this should be the first thing you do. Okay? The map is your pseudocode for your game. Figure out what it is that you want to do, and then now let's translate that from a map into an actual game.
Should we write a game design document?
If you want to, I'm not requiring.
Oh, okay.
What the heck is that?
That's his background, is game development. So he's like salary. Probably.
Yes. The drool is coming out in droves over here.
Do not neglect your game's narrative. Try and draw your player into the game world with an interesting story. What I say is that the more bored I am, the more that I look for problems in your game. Okay? If I'm not bored, I can overlook weird like little problems, but if your game's super boring and I can't get anywhere, then I get frustrated and regular stuff. Like social
This has to be
you need
fun.
to write your game in a way that is interesting, right? And brains play.
Don't do it.
Okay? Remember, your classmates are also going to play your game, right? So
I'm just gonna make a game that's
you
like
don't want to be that
silly.
person that thinks that the other person's game, that everyone thinks your game is boring. Right? We're gonna vote for it at the end of the semester.
Call it Sea of Robbers. That's what I'm gonna call
How long
it.
should the game be ideally?
I don't know.
More scenes where you can interact.
I mean, yeah.
That's the minimum.
Daniel.
Minimum.
I'm gonna make
So-
Sea of Robbers. It's gonna have 4 islands.
There again, I don't
You get
have
to
a time
find
limit.
treasure boxes that have coins in them. You bring them back and your
You need to use a class or
level
classes.
increases.
Everything should be contained.
like I'm gonna have it where you can
Right, so
actually like get on a
main
boat
should
and
just be
you
like
have your
your
treasure,
game,
and then
and start-
skeletons can kill you
start
while you're going back
posting,
to
start your
the
game, and
to
call
sell
it
the
a
stuff.
game.
So like there's like a random memory generator for skeletons. So like you're like press 1 to see to try your luck, and you move like 2 spaces, and then every once in a while a skeleton's gonna be like, oh
Really, each room should have
yeah. And then you have like a 1 in 5 chance of, what is it? I think it's like depending on how high you are, you have like a certain chance. Like if you have a lot of stuff, you have like a 1 in 5 chance of killing the skeletons. Yeah, so like you have a 1 in 5 chance
And
of
you get
killing
points for
them.
doing
And if
it.
you have like nothing, then you have
Right,
like a 1
and
in
you add
1.
more than, right, the base, kind of what I'm asking for, then there's extra points. I had one person, they were doing a function for every room, and they prototyped out 99 rooms. They only filled in like 8 or 9.
Well, that raises the
The
bar.
function
I've only got
declarations for the 99.
Only got 16.
Only got 16. I need 100.
You'll realize,
Draw that.
unfortunately, you'll realize that as you get into it, that even doing basic stuff takes time. It's a lot of if statements. It's a lot of like booleans, like if this is true, do this, else if that's true, do that. They're both true, do this. There's a lot of that. So, kind of like a shootout game, exactly. Right? Exactly, but you're so much smarter now than when you did a shootout.
Hey, I should write the shootout game in.
There are no pointers required in this one, right? You don't have to do any dynamic stuff, right? So you have everything you need already to start working on. Okay? But really your goal is to kind of make the map first, right? Think about what you're gonna do and then, right, please start. Questions there? So today you need to turn in multi-CPP, right, filled out. And then hopefully if you have extra time, start working on your own. That's what I would recommend. Right, because this is due, right, not this Thursday and not next Thursday, but what? The following Thursday. Which also has to do in your final grade. But not a lot of time, but it is enough.
I'm gonna make a timer that lasts 100 seconds and says connect to the server, and it's gonna be a bunch of,
Yeah, on the day of the final.
like, you know, like a forward slash
What time I
line.
expect that?
It's gonna look like it's spinning, so it's gonna say connect to
Really-
the server, but it's
Just
gonna
long
be
as
doing that for like
it's
100
just want it
seconds.
I
done.
love that.
If you come to class on the final and you don't have it done,
What done?
Fuck
The game?
No, I'm gonna make that thing that does that, and it's gonna say connected to the server, and I'm gonna make like the seconds. So like you can connect to the server in 3 seconds or 100 seconds.
we can come to the final.
Yeah.
Wonderful though.
But then the menu will pop up and it's like, oh, we have to actually connect with the server? No, I put that in
It's like your
there
final project.
just because I could.
So funny. It's like after
You have one written
like
and
like-
multiple choice
I was like, oh, disconnected from server. Like every once in a while, it'll just say it's whatever. Like
Wait,
if it's
we're
over a
supposed to
certain amount of
open these in
seconds,
Cloud
you
nine?
don't connect to the server.
like it'll say connect to server and the game keeps going like wait what?
No, like what I'll do is with the random number generator, if it gets over so many seconds, you disconnect from the server.
I have 1
Just
minute until my
open it.
It's
computer.
gonna be awesome.
Any last question?
Did he say that we need to put like files from today's lab in any particular spot?
No, we just have to turn them all in at the same time.
Okay, cool. What do I do?
So you open these.
Neither of us. Like.
Okay, so scroll up, right? You always want to start at the top one. So you pass the first one, right? So let's say no adding that location, which makes me think that you're C adding it, as if all your error messages should go to C air. So you're C outing your error messages, so you need to change it to C air. So do that on all of them.
So you're just creating new.
Yeah. Do that on all of them, and then you can
I also didn't know that.
it's just another place to output. Yeah.
What was the name of this one?
Are you trying to put it all in Cloud9 so you can just
I had to go
run it?
pee really bad. Why can't I just rename this? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Why can't I just rename this?
What would you name it?
I just opened a new file and stored it in there, but I can't rename this.
Go to where it's at and then just rename it on the side.
And also,
Title this too.
Don't worry about that.
Where the user be?
Maybe.
What's this one called? Driver.cpp.
Alright, so it looks like you have inlines. That's fine, this is all inline, this is one line. So remove all your inlines. And then start working on the next one that says go.
and you should just be it.
Multi.cpp. Quiet you.
Yeah, I mean, normally you're accessing memory right outside of your array.
God damn it. Cap. Now Cap. Not gonna be quiet.
Usually.
Kyle.
You started it.
He knows where that's coming from. South Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being haunted by that, well, how about my entire teenage friend? That works.
Too bad it wasn't mutant.
So it could be that.
I don't like. How is Daniel ahead of me right now?
Because he's Daniel. He's damn Daniel.
West Coast server, I want to.
How I'm gonna make that? Like, so on Thursday I can show it to you, that thing where it just does the spinning thing. It'll just keep outputting different symbols so it looks like it's spinning.
So it'll be like a low key ASCII art.
No, it's not gonna be ASCII art, it's gonna be like, it's literally just gonna be like it's gonna be a forward slash, and then a hyphen, and then a backslash, and then a straight line, and then a forward slash again, so it looks like it's spinning in a circle.
Forward slash.
Okay, so we're actually doing shit in multi-CPP and
And then a line, and then keeps going, and it does that for like maybe 15 seconds, so it looks like it just says connecting, and it'll bring
So we're starting in
the
multi.
same thing over and over in a while loop for it to reach a certain value. Okay, so cool. Trevor.cpp.o is no such file or directory.
Can I get it down?
I fucked up.
Okay, so those are our variables. So we have our constructor.
Multi.cpp is no such file or directory. What kind of bullshit is this?
Which is why I call my eyebrow.
So we put the definitions here.
Because they weren't together, right? Because right now you have one row and another. So I should just see a window. No,
Just wondering if the constructor needs anything inside of the brackets because it's already been defined.
Oh, look at that, the metal lobbies. Oh,
What are they doing now?
I hate searching too long. That's what it was. That's what I did. What the hell?
Does it matter what the name of the array is?
Not there yet.
Okay. Guess I'm gonna go back and look. Oh, it's already been named.
You know what we could do is we could just. Copy. Okay. So constructor, so what are outside of the dynamic array one on the side. Doc, you could sit down.
Let's say
So, I think I'm close. So this is
But don't recreate it, right?
Right.
It's been created as a member, right? So get rid of that. Get rid of the star.
And then this needs to be, oops,
No equals. That's a point.
that's right. Equals, I'm not quite sure what it's saying.
So your parameters, rows and columns, right? It's
Yeah.
telling you how many rows for the dynamic array and how many columns.
Which is 5 and 5.
Right. Well, defaults to 5 and 5.
Defaults to 5 and 5.
Could be
So
in there.
this is just
Would be the brackets, right?
No. Right. To create something dynamic, we use what word?
multi-array.
Oh, new.
equals
No. Be new something. Like since it's an integer, it'd be new int.
So this is how I did it, right? Here. Int star quizzes is very similar to the int star multi-array that I created, right? I get the rows and the columns, right? Well, you have the rows and the columns right here.
Right.
So then I say my array equals new int star of how many rows that I want. So you're going to do the same thing, multi-array equals new int star.
And then I'll use 2 for loops that are nested to get to each.
Right, and that's in the
individually.
fill up in that. So this code is your constructor code.
Right.
This code's your fill up code, and this code's your output code.
Would we also include
Well,
the
that makes
columns
sense. Okay.
in
That's
the
cool reference,
in the
thank you.
constructor? Would we also include the columns with the rows? Or we just,
No.
or just the rows?
Just the rows, because
Okay.
you don't, it's an array of arrays. You only create, new will only create a array at a time.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So my type is multi.
Your type?
Yeah.
Right? No, multi is the name of your array, it's the identifier. Your type is int star.
I think this is done. And I think you can assign them, but you can run one.
Yeah, but you can't do that. You do one, and then you can do one. Like we did it, now you have to do multi. Where we do that, so you int star.
And you do that all in the same constructor?
Yeah, all in the same constructor, because the constructor is going to create the array. Okay. This is great. Okay. Now, multi-array, right, got created right here. Right, that's part of it. Notice in the template is today, the quizzes are here. So there's quizzes and multi-array basically have the same thing. Alright, and so here, in this example, I asked the user how many rows, and I asked the user how many rows, right? So I just get statements. But for you, right, we have the parameter that tells you how many rows. So size row is really rows, right? Size row. And here's your code for your constructor. Quizzes equals a new int star.
Not on my watch.
Alright,
I will prevail.
Because you only create one dynamic array.
Must construct.
So that creates, right, an array of pointers, and then we loop for our array of pointers in each pointer. So now, and then we just loop for well, yeah, and you will have to create columns eventually. This will do it, right? So the type on the multi-array so that creates and I go
Cool.
Yeah, just saying, yeah, I row. Well, for the I rows,
Do you need a nested loop for the output one? Because I would think you need that for the Philip.
Output one, yes, but not for the Philip one. For the Philip one, you're
For output,
going through
I got
rows,
it.
and then, but for the output, you do.
Yeah, output, you're gonna output each individual index of each row. Yeah. I gotta move this one.
Spell like this.
Right here. The first line is the multi-array and point to this array that you saw. And the inside is this element. We're going to point to this array. Working. So, it exists in the H one. No way it's probably be a blue file. And just you have to say, you still have to create the variable parameter, but not the parameter.
Oh my lord, what did I mess up?
Oh, jeez. Messed up a bunch of stuff.
Default argument given for parameter 1.
It's permissive. Oh, what? How is that one broken?
Teacher, what did I do?
Oh, no.
Man, listen.
I didn't. I feel like I nailed it.
Yeah, you messed up something up there.
Did you leave the equals 5 in the CPP file? You did. So default arguments only go in the H.
Yeah, I was wondering why that
So
was
these
there.
go away.
Everyone hear this. Default arguments only go on the H. So when you copy and paste it over the CPP, you need to remove the equals 5 in the constructor.
Still.
Well, now you're getting your redder, right? So multi-array equals new and not 2 stars. Line
Oh,
13, no, line 13.
Wait.
Way up there. That only makes half your array.
So this one's only
But that-
one as well.
But that
This one's 2 because it's the columns.
right. Well, but that all should go together when your object gets created. So all this should be up there.
Oh. Is it in a loop as well?
Create your middle array,
Right.
and then loop through it and create all your integer arrays. So create your.
That makes sense. Okay.
That's why there's
So
no
now-
stars there and 1 star there because you're creating those ones.
Now, why did I think that that's what goes in
I
here?
don't know because you saw a loop. I see 2 loops together. That's what that's cool.
Oh shoot! So then this is wrong. This is
TNT,
for
yeah.
Philip.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what your madness is doing over there.
Yeah, so they were supposed to be nested in Philip.
I don't listen. I don't know. Who knows? Don't follow me.
I mean, that makes
You're gonna
sense
get ganked.
because you have to be able to input.
I said, don't follow me. You're gonna get ganked.
Get lost in the storm.
Right.
Okay.
I'm missing only one thing. Expected unqualified ID void before void in Philip. Then what?
Okay, so is there something wrong in here?
What does your output function look like? Oh, there's nothing in it.
About to get there.
Okay, got
My
it.
Philip, I don't know. My Philip is missing something, but it's close.
Let me see your Philip function. Okay, so, oh, you just called it J instead of I. Okay, so you output a inline, which is good, and then.
So I need
hell
to
are you
do something.
doing?
Well, no. Here's the thing: is I had to shift everything up. So my constructor for loop was my Philip, and my Philip loop was my out.
Oh,
So I had to put the output into here and then this into there because I'm a step. I thought I was a step ahead, but I was
Okay.
actually a step behind.
so in the Philip function, where you're supposed to.
Because like I had this in here and I had this in here. So these C outs was what I was thinking I was C outing, which they're similar. They're similar, but they're just not.
Well, for Philip, I would assume it's C in, right?
Yeah, no, it's seeing.
Yeah, but I don't think we want to output an end line, right?
Well, there's a C in here. Get the
Yeah, you see out the end line, and then you see in these right here. But these are global variables. But what I did is I just set rows, right? Because that's a global variable. And then I said change the value of I because that's the columns. So as long as rows is different, then there you go. Wait a minute. No, that's not right. Something's done broken it.
Oh, is that? Oh. Is that right?
Well, in Philip, you shouldn't say new. New is only reserved for the constructor. You only want to create the array ones.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Your Philip's gonna say for every row, for every column,
Yes.
multi-at bracket, row, bracket, comma. Yeah, it's looking like dynamic multi.
Yeah, just so that match, pretty much.
And try to.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to.
Yeah, we're on this one. Just like that.
You finish it?
No. So push open.
Nice. Yeah. Later, man. Just leave us here by ourselves.
That's right. Nope. Is that an expected unqualified ID before void? It's a good question.
Oh, lol.
In Philip, what I did is
Brain fart much?
You put void.
I just copy pasted.
That's probably why mine's not working.
Do you do it too?
Yeah, you're supposed to put void before the. Got it.
Well, I just have actual problems.
You always have problems.
Rose was not declared in this scope.
Damn. Let's see if this runs. Oh no. Oh. Something's going on. I got like 50 quadrillion errors. Rose was not declared in this scope.
Doesn't make sense though because we do it right here.
No, but it's a local variable. Because it's only in that function. So you have to use rows underscore, not rows.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because rows underscore is it's global.
And that means this would be.
Then you use columns underscore. And rows underscore was assigned to rows. So now you already have that value somewhere. Oh, that got rid of a lot of errors. That's good. Oh, operator, operand types, and int. Oh, I used the wrong operator for cin. I knew that. And now I only have one error. Rose was not declared in the scope. Fuck. I need to use rows underscore, damn it. There. Okay, now I have to set it to assignments because now it won't run. An error code of 4. Kind of compilation terminated. Okay, I see how it is. No such file or directory referenced. What? Yeah. They're all in the same folder, and they all have the same exact names. Well, the names that they were given before I put them in here. Like, I can run it in simple, but when I run it in simple, it just gives me a bunch of index errors, so I know it's going to compile. Yeah. Command 1 not found. Error 127. No such file or directory. Wait, how? I'm running it right here and it says it doesn't exist. Project terminated. You have been terminated. See, now when it runs this, it means it's going to compile, but you have to set it to assignments. But when you set it to assignments, it's going to say it can't find it. See? It can't find it.
Are we using CN Reader?
No. Oh, it's still running. Where did you put these files? What folder? This folder?
Yeah.
That's why. Because
Are they supposed to be somewhere?
It's trying to run this and this and this and this.
But from where do they need to be?
In their own folder. But it's not going to compile anyway. Because as long as if you go back to simple and you get a bunch of index errors, it means that you've done it right. It's just not going to compile because it's being stupid. It's being retarded.
So we need to put all these in their own.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I did that and it's still giving me that error.
Okay, so what are these called again?
So
Time to turn this in and forget about it.
let's see.
Never gonna see this again.
I equals 0, I less than current size, I plus 1. If I is less than current size, you output it with a comma. Otherwise, you still may output it. Else.
The file type is not allowed. Only CPP and H files are. Screw you. No, I want to open this with VLC viewer. Hey Kyle. My computer asked me, how do you want to open this RAR file with VLC viewer? That's what I want to open it with. I think it might be broken. This file type is not allowed. Okay. Is this file type allowed?
When you see out in something, see that 5.5, you probably see out of that and get element. So when you get element, you get a CI and that's
I can't test it. It's saying there's
It won't test.
No, you want to.
As long as, like I said, as long as you went to run simple and it gives you a bunch of index errors, it means that it's going to compile. So that means you've done something right. It just won't reference any of the files because it's just being stupid. See, that means you've done it right. It's just that you now have to reference all the files, but
I want to output it so I can see something. So I need to do that still.
that's probably why it's not running. Output is basically you write it the same way as fill up, but you just use cout. So like when you fill up, you input every single index, but you just change it from cin to cout, and it outputs every index. I mean, you could quite literally just copy paste from fill up and just change cout or cin.
I want to get familiar with writing.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Just say it.
Not plus I, plus your array at I. Your array at I. So what's the name of your array? Otherwise, you're just saying add it once.
92.56%. I see how it is.